What's cracking, everybody? XehrFelrose here, bringing you some Pokemon Go Battle League content. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the team that took me to Veteran in the Open Ultra League, running triple counter. Some spice, if you might think, because counter is typically not great in a meta full of ghosts. So let's take a look at this team and how it handles. Getting into this first battle here, we're going to have our Deoxys on the lead versus a Weezing. So, I mean, if I'm going to see this thing... That was the wrong button. All right, forgive me. The music was supposed to play, not kaboom. I don't know why this thing does what it does. My opponent tries to catch a Psycho Boost on their Jellicent, so I'm going to farm up a bunch of energy on my Deoxys, and I'm going to go ahead and come in with my Obstacoon, because Obstacoon more or less walls the Jellicent, or at least it used to. Now that Jellicent has Surf, with that energy lead it's got, it's actually pretty dangerous for me to let it have that much energy, because as you can see, the Surfs are very quickly adding up. So, I just need to keep this Jellicent away from my Deoxys, and preferably keep Haxorus away from the Weezing. So I do need to win this matchup so that I don't get their Weezing aligned to my Haxorus. And, excuse me, you might notice that Haxorus is running Earthquake in this meta. Night Slash is pretty good for the ghost types, but Earthquake just hits so freaking hard on Haxorus. And you're going to see why I run it in this video later on. We're going to see some really awesome action with Haxorus. I love Haxorus so much. It's one of my new favorite Pokemon to run in GBL in general. I love these Pokemon that have like these quick debuffs. So my opponent pops in with their Weezing, and I remember that they only farmed up to 5. So they're going to have a Brutal Swing. I'm going to hope that that doesn't KO. Thankfully, it does not. So I'm going to pop back in with my Deoxys and start pressuring this Weezing with Deoxys' Rock Slides. I don't want to throw the Psycho Boost right off the bat. And I can let them throw another Brutal Swing. Yes, it's super effective damage, but it's certainly not going to be enough to like completely KO me here. So now I'm going to start letting the Psycho Boost rip, because they're in a range where this would actually KO, or almost KO, I should say. And the Psycho Boost does debuff the attack of Deoxys. So they're going to let their Weezing go down, and then they're going to bring in a Swampert. And man, Haxorus is going to eat. And remember, I also have a move stored on my Obstacoon. When you're using a team like this, sometimes the energy is what's truly impactful. So because I saved that Night Slash on my Goon, I can come in, force my opponent to shield, and I do. And what I do there is I go for the Obstruct. And the reason why I went for Obstruct is because I figured my opponent would probably try to shield this anyway, and by getting the defense drop, I'll be able to hopefully counter down with Haxorus, if not very closely. Yeah, I'm going to go for the Haxorus counter. Oh, goodness gracious, I cannot speak today. So I'm going to be able to start ripping Breaking Swipes against the Swampert, and by the time they get to the Earthquake, which they won't because I have so much extra energy, I go for the CMP Tither. Remember, I was trying to keep count of the opponent's energy, so I was able to remember where they were, CMP on the Breaking Swipe, take them out, and that is a good game. Going into the next one here, we're going to have our Deoxys up against a Swampert. So, unlike the other team that we used to run with the Drapion in back, this, I actually don't mind safe swapping the Haxorus immediately. Now, that's what I have been doing. This is the first game that I had a Swampert lead, and I was trying to figure out how I'd like to play it. Normally, when we played that Drapion line, we would go for the Psycho Boosts and just boost this thing into the moon. But now, I've actually started to prefer to just safe swap the Haxorus immediately, preserving some HP on Deoxys. My opponent goes for the Earthquake. I correctly shield the Earthquake, and in comes a Cresselia, and this is actually kind of painful. So, we're going to go for the Earthquake here, and this is why I like Earthquake. In these matchups where you get a hard counter from the Haxorus, typically the Earthquake hits pretty hard. And, I mean, for a Cresselia, that's a pretty fair amount of non-stab neutral damage. Moonblast will absolutely take out my Haxorus, though, and now we're going to hit the Kaboom button on the right way. I always love when I get to start a video off with Kaboom for no reason. Deoxys will come in here, because Deoxys pretty effectively can deal with Cresselia from that HP difference, and Rock Slides will take it out. And then what I get to do is I get to hope that my opponent does not have a really hard answer in the back to Obstacoon. Typically what you're going to see in the back is a person who's got something like Swampert in the lead. They'll usually have an answer in the back to Trevenant. So in this case, that's going to be Charizard. I'm hoping that my opponent assumes I'm going for a Night Slash here and maybe shields it, but they won't. They are very there. That was a well played, you know, if you're going to no shield something that has a boost opportunity kind of move like Obstacoon, Night Slash could boost. Not shielding the first one is the way to go. However, now I'm going to go for another Obstruct. I went and shielded the move there so that I could try and get as much of a defense boost against this Charizard before I took any extra damage. So at this point, The Blast Burn doesn't hurt that bad, and I can get the other shield off of my opponent here. Now, this is going to be very, very tricky. I don't really see a win condition here. The opponent just goes for one more Blast Burn and is going to be able to take me out, unless I'm able to catch the Blast Burn, which I don't. But I feel like this might be a little bit soon. But no, that was definitely a Blast Burn. Now, thanks for the defense drop, though. I am going to be able to go for a Psycho Boost one move before they would get to the Dragon Claw. And then the Psycho Boost should KO. And then the Swampert is not quite at a move yet because they threw and dipped, so now I will be able to also go for the Psycho Boost. I had to overfarm there in order to get enough energy to get to that Psycho Boost before they got to a move. So, good game. Hard game to win there, but well played to my opponent. So we hit a Clefable lead. Something else that absolutely has to see Deoxys. I do stay in here, and again, I'm just going to go for the Rock Slides in reasonable time here. I'm not going to, like, go immediately for them. I try to, you know, get a little bit of extra energy just in case my opponent tries to swap and make a catch, or if I do end up throwing and they go, you know, they immediately swap into something. I just want to make sure that my Deoxys has energy left over, because one of the strongest things I feel like you can do with Deoxys in the Open Ultra League is bank a move for later in some situations. It'll actually see, you know, the Clefable's not swapping out because maybe that there is something in the back that is weak to Deoxys. As Rock Slide could be weak to its Psycho Boost, so I will let this go, though. The expectation I have for my opponent here is that they are strong against Dragon and Goon in the front, so I'm hoping that they're weak to it in the back. So what I'm going to do here is really risky, and I CMP like a fool. I wasn't paying attention, and I know the Moonblast counts, but I wasn't really paying attention. We get the CMP, and I'm forced to shield, and I have to give up the first shield, unfortunately. So I'll go for the Night Slash here. My opponent decides not to and shield it. Obviously, why would they? And here comes a Scrafty, and I send in my Haxorus. My opponent's got a Swampert. I'm thinking, okay, maybe there's a chance. But they are up a shield, and Haxorus gets to moves at about the same pace as a Shadow Swampert gets to its Hydro Cannon. So I know this is just a Hydro Cannon, so I'm kind of forced to no-shield this. In hindsight, I would have preferred maybe not to shield this one, or I would have preferred to shield this one and then no shield another one, because I would have had a little bit more HP left over. Maybe I could have dealt with the Scrafty, but my opponent just saves 2 shields for the Scrafty, and the Scrafty is just going to rip through my Haxorus. There's nothing I can do here. I'm basically going to just no shield, which maybe I shouldn't have, and then just come in with my Obstacoon, hope that, you know, these Obstructs are going to make a difference here in order to let me flip what normally is a really bad matchup. But the double super effective counters are just going to prove to be too much for my Obstacoon, and they're going to go for a power-up punch here, basically negating the defense increase that I just got. So they're going to take this game, unfortunately, but it was pretty, I made it pretty close, considering that Scrafty in the back kind of just is painful. So next game, we're going to have Deoxys on the lead against a Registeel. This is not a good matchup for Deoxys in the long term, but I'm doing super effective damage and counters without an attack drop, so they're going to probably go for Zap Cannon. That's typically what the Registeels do here in the lead. And then what I can do is, if I get an attack drop, I can just dip out, and I just dip out anyway, because at this point, I can start getting ahead on Haxorus' energy. My opponent actually goes all the way up to a move, taking even more counter damage, which is fine with me, and they go for a Zap Cannon, and then they come in with a Galarian Zapdos, and now this is some spice, all right? I actually have Galarian Zapdos. I caught it with my Master Ball. It's got decent IVs. I already built it for Ultra League, but I haven't run it yet, at least not successfully. And my opponent's just going to come in and just eat a bunch of Breaking Swipes, and I can, if I want to, flip this, but I don't. They're going to go for a move here. Close Combat actually hurts a lot. Takes out my poor little... takes out my poor little Haxorus, and I'm going to try to counter down, but they do get to a move, and I'm like, they might be running Brave Bird, and I have to shield this. I have to respect it, but it's just close combat. Deoxys would have easily lived that, and now I'm down to no shields, which is really unfortunate. So I'm going to go for a Rock Slide here. It's resisted as with the Psycho Boost, but I want to get some chip damage. I do know that my opponent is basically energy dry here, and so I'm going to go for another Rock Slide before I drop my attack. My point here is if they shield, I want to go for a Psycho Boost real quick, get the next shield, but instead they come in with a Pidgeot, and now this is really bad for my opponent. I don't know if any of you have ever played this matchup, but Obstacoon with Obstruct completely annihilates Pidgeot, and here's why. The Obstruct bonus boost basically makes it so that the Brave Bird is useless, and now my opponent is going to be forced to go for 2 Brave Birds here. And if they go for 1 Brave Bird, they're going to be debuffed. They have to go for the Feather Dance, which now gives me the opportunity to go for a second Obstruct. This now prevents the Brave Bird from completely KOing me at all. And they are now forced to shield it. I can just counter down the Pidgeot. I've played this enough. I know this isn't going to KO. A Brave Bird after 2 Obstruct buffs does like, yeah, 40%. Not even. It's pretty ridiculous. So I'm going to go for a Night Slash here. And I have to remember that this Registeel had some energy. So I swap immediately, hoping I can get a Snipe down. But instead they throw. But that also resets the debuff. And they go for a Focus Blast trying to KO the Obstacoon, and that Pidgeot's going to go down to 1 counter from the Deoxys, and that's going to be a good game, well played. Deoxys into Nidoqueen, again, another really nasty lead, but I'd rather see it on my Deoxys where I can threaten shields with Psycho Boosts. So what I like to do here is I will actually go up to 2 Psycho Boosts and throw a Rock Slide typically. The going up to 2 Psycho Boosts may make the opponent think that I'm ready to just do back-to-back Psycho Boost to try and get their, get their shields, but normally the Shadow doesn't normally the Shadow does shield the first move. So now I'm going to go for the Psycho Boost before I get taken out. Want my opponent's shields completely gone. That'll make things a little bit easier later on in the game, and they do shield both, so now I'm just going to end up getting clobbered. But I'm going to keep my shield advantage, let this go, and then I'm going to come in, I believe, with my Obstacoon because it is a little bit bulkier than my Haxorus. I also get a low battery, which is, I like living life on the edge, all right? Don't judge me. This is an amazing monster flavor, by the way. My wife got it for me. It's amazing. Hashtag not a sponsor. Wouldn't mind if it was a sponsor. So we're going to go for Night Slashes against the Nidoqueen here. And I will start shielding, I believe, here, because what I'm expecting is them to have Double Dark in the back. Oh, I don't shield this at all. Okay. Hindsight is 20/20, folks. I'm expecting them to have Double Dark, so I'm hoping that my Haxorus just kind of destroys their backline. Immediately swapping in, they have a Cobalion and I have 2 shields. This is actually a lot easier than it looks. I'm going to go straight for an Earthquake, and I'm going to one-shot this Cobalion, and I have already got my hand on the button. We're ready to go. I also hope that they have a Scrafty back there. This is going to be great. Oh, they went for another move. How unfortunate. This is going to be good. So I do overfarm here again, and I actually instead go for the Breaking Swipe because my opponent decided to go straight for a move here. It allowed me to overfarm knowing that I could get some extra damage in. And then they've got an Obstacoon in the back, and I don't think there's any way they can deal with this Haxorus. They're going to eat like 2 or 3 Breaking Swipes before they can even get to a move here, and I'm just going to keep going for it. My Obstacoon is just alive enough to tank a move, and they're going to throw at 5. I assume they're going to throw at 5, so I swapped immediately, and they threw. So the Night Slash is going to get caught on Obstacoon, counter down the Obstacoon, and that's going to be a good game. Very well played to my opponent. Nidoqueen is a little bit scary. I also brought back the X transition. I was playing around with the in-video transitions, and to be completely honest, it didn't feel right after doing the X for so long. The X did, like someone mentioned in the comments, the X is what was sort of unique. So that I took to heart, and I decided to keep it. So the opponent swaps in a Charizard here, and I feel like that may not have been the correct move for them to make, because now that my Deoxys is ahead of them by 1 fast move, it means I'm going to get to these Rock Slides a lot faster. So I can get both shields off of this Charizard very easily here, and knowing that the opponent has a Walrein in the lead, I actually know that everything on my team beats Walrein, so I'm not worried about it. So at the very last second, I'm going to go for the Psycho Boost. My opponent CMP ties me, knowing that I'm about to get to a move. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to let it go. And I'm going to come in with my Haxorus to get the Breaking Swipe off. I'm going to shield up the Dragon Claw. Now, if I want to, I can overfarm just a little bit, try and CMP the Charizard on 4 or 5. Well, it's just going straight for it, though, because I think I lost count of their energy, and I didn't want to risk it. So, Breaking Swipe will take out this Charizard. The opponent's got a Walrein. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to swap to try and catch a move. My opponent comes up with Swampert, and here's the cool thing. Once again, Obstacoon with Obstruct. If you have not made one of these and built one of yourself yet, you should do it. In my opinion, Obstructagoon is one of the best things that you can have on your roster for the Open Ultra League. It's just, if you can set it up to get an Obstruct boost, and then it just starts rolling, and it goes so hard. When these moves don't do much damage, like Obstacoon in the Ultra League's already pretty tanky, and when you start adding Obstruct bonuses on top of that, the Hydro Cannons aren't going to do anything, man. Like, they're going to do no damage. My opponent could go for an Earthquake, still wouldn't KO. They're going to catch this, they're going to catch the Night Slash on the Walrein. Fine with me. I do believe my Haxorus does have some energy, but I'm going to just keep going and force them to throw their energy here. And then what I can do is, because they just threw right away, it doesn't even KO, dude. And then I'm going to come in immediately with my Haxorus to get the Breaking Swipe off, counter down if I could, but unfortunately for me, my opponent had a move loaded, got me with the Icicle Spear. I'm able to take out the Walrein with 1 HP, get the Night Slash off, and KO the Swampert. Well played, close game, G freaking G's. Oh man, that was a close one. Alright, hitting into this next one here, we've got Deoxys against another Registeel. So once again, Registeel, we're going to do 8 counters, just keep countering until they throw the Zap Cannon, and then afterwards we're going to swap out to Haxorus, start getting ahead on energy. The thing is, and the reason why I do this is because I'm essentially doing super effective damage and receiving almost nothing in return. My opponent is going to drop a Clefable on my poor Haxorus safe swap. So what I'm going to do here, something risky, I'm going to see if my opponent knows if Haxorus has Earthquake. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for the Breaking Swipe. What happens here is there's a bit of a mind game, right? I go for a shield. My opponent may also be willing to spend a shield. And then they get to the Moonblast one before I get to my freaking Earthquake. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to let this go at this point. There's no reason. But we live! We live the Moonblast thanks to the Breaking Swipe debuff. They go for a Meteor Mash, which does not KO. Haxorus almost takes out the Clefable. Deoxys can farm down, but I'm going to go for a Rock Slide just in case because I don't want them to throw a Moonblast into my Deoxys for literally no reason. And then they've got they've got a Jellicent in the back. I'm going to go into my Obstacoon here because I really don't want my Deoxys to handle this Jellicent. I would rather my Obstacoon did. And I'm going to start going for Obstructs. And here's the secret sauce about Obstructagoon versus Registeel, folks. After 2, count them, 2 Obstruct bonuses, buffs, whatever you want to call them, Obstacoon cleanly lives a Focus Blast from Registeel. The opponent now forced to shield. The Registeel in shambles gets to a Focus Blast right before I take them out. But look at this, folks. Focus Blast. Obstacoon don't care, dude. And Obstacoon is now taking double resisted Hex damage while the opponent tries to get themselves together in order to try and farm down. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to swap immediately in case the opponent tries to go for the Surf, which they did. Caught the Surf on the Jellicent, or from the Jellicent on my Deoxys. Going to go for a Rock Slide. And then I'm going to try to CMP on another charge move with a Psycho Boost. So right on 6, we're going to go for the Psycho Boost, force my opponent to throw that Surf. And now all I can hope to do is get the move off against this Jellicent, but they unfortunately get to a Surf before I can. They have overfarmed perfectly. I can't get to a move here. Unfortunate for me. Well played to my opponent. They definitely got the better of me there. The Jellicent in the back. There's a Jellicent on like every team. So this is a good lead. We have a Sandslash. And the opponent immediately switches into Giratina. It's Dragon Breath Giratina, though. And I realize at this point that this team does not have a clean answer to the Giratina with Dragon Breath. So I shielded the first Dragon Claw because I was going to go for Obstruct. What I should probably do here is just go straight Night Slash. But the thing is that Giratina in the multiple shield scenarios against basically like Scrafty, Obstagoon, any of these like dark fighters, the stupid Giratina actually wins these matchups in the 2 shields because the Dragon Breath damage just adds up so much faster. So, unfortunately for me, I know that I'm going to lose this matchup, but at the same time, my opponent will have to shield in order to win. So, I'm hoping that I can make some magic happen knowing that my entire team does double super effective damage to that Sandslash that was in the lead. And knowing this, I can try and formulate some sort of a winning strategy. I just need to know what they're going to have in the back with that Giratina so I can plan accordingly. Deoxys is going to come in, and I am going to go for a no shield here. I do, even if it's a Shadow Sneak, I'm not worried about it. But they just throw the Dragon Claw trying to get some chip damage in, and I'm going to go for the Psycho Boost right away because I need to get rid of this Giratina. I'm hoping that they also don't have an answer to, or a stronger answer in the back, but they've got a Tapu Fini, so and then they switch in their Sandslash. So now I have a chance. However, I have played out the Tapu Fini plenty of times, and I know that I could win it if I wanted to. Most of them actually don't shield Earthquake, and then that allows you to win that situation because they're just throwing water guns at you. It's all resisted damage. So I'm gonna go and counter down. I'm gonna shield up that. I'm gonna shield up. I'm just imagining the Earthquake now. I'm gonna shield up the Ice Punch, counter down the Sandslash, go for the Earthquake, hits that Tapu Fini hard enough that I can now go for a Breaking Swipe. If they don't throw, but they do throw to clip me away from that move, it's going to be the Moonblast, and that is going to be painful. Poor Haxorus, but the Deoxys is going to come in, has plenty of HP, and I'm not even going to throw a charge move. I'm just going to commit to the counter down here and take out this Tapu Fini and take the game. Well played. Hitting this next game up against a Gliscor. Shadow Shiny Gliscor. That's a heck of a flex, dude. I have to stay in here because this thing resists counter, but what I can do is I can throw a Psycho Boost, I can chip it, and I was going to try to catch a Night Slash, but they still throw a Night Slash, so I guess technically I won that. I caught it anyway. Alright, so the opponent then comes in with a Cobalion, and that actually is kind of painful. Going to go for the Obstruct right away, and then hopefully, with 1 or 2 Obstruct debuffs, I will be able to counter down afterwards with Deoxys. My opponent goes immediately for a move, though, which is great. I thought they were going to counter down, or double kick down, I should say. But since they don't, I'm just going to come in with Deoxys. I'm going to eat a Stone Edge or 2 and farm them all the way down and just start dumping rocks on that Gliscor. Thankfully, this situation is most ideal. If my opponent had decided to farm me all the way down, they would have been a lot lower of HP. And Goon actually doesn't do terribly. If they get a couple of Obstruct debuffs, the counters really start adding up because they come quicker than the double kicks. It does make a difference. So I'm going to be able to dump some rocks on the Gliscor. My opponent, not on the move yet, staying in. Gonna go for another Rock Slide, hopefully forcing a shield at this point. And I'm just gonna stay in now. I'm gonna try and force the other shield, but they're gonna go for a Night Slash here. And I find an opportunity to potentially shield and go for the Psycho Boost instead. And they catch it on Jellicent like Chads, dude. And because my Obstacoon is no longer in the picture, I'm gonna come immediately with my Haxorus. And I'm going to go for these breaking swipes. And I know that this is not the greatest matchup for Haxorus due to the ghost typing, but watch how much damage the breaking swipes do. They do add up, and because this Jellicent is running Hex, they will generate energy a little bit quicker, but that also means that the Shadow Ball still hurt. And that actually has nothing to do with anything. My brain is just rambling things on at this point. But they're going to go for Shadow Ball. I'm going to shield it. The correct technical move for them would have been to go for a Surf Bait, but I think they were just saying, you know what, I've got a shield, why not just go straight for Shadow Ball, which is technically correct, but Shadow Ball does not KO. My opponent's going to come in with a Gliscor, and that actually is going to allow me to hopefully get to another move before them if I can successfully catch this move. And we try to catch, but we fail miserably. But I think my opponent knows that they have to throw right away. They're going to go for the full Shadow Ball. They full set the Shadow Ball, and that's okay with me, because with one more counter, we're going to be able to breaking swipe the Jellicent, take it out, and that's going to be a good game. Well played to my opponent. Very close one, but able to eke it out, thankfully, by forcing him to throw the energy at the end game there. And now we've got a Talonflame, and I couldn't ask for a better lead, because yes, it looks like not great, but when you have Rock Slide on your Deoxys, this matchup is just a complete win if you throw with good timing. So on 14 turns, which is 7 counters, we're going to get to the Rock Slide before 15 turns of 3 Incinerates, forcing the first shield off the Talonflame. We don't need to shield anything. My opponent's going to go for 2 more. They have 100 energy now. They're going to go for the Brave Bird, and they're going to dip out, and they're going to come in with a Blastoise. Blastoise is not going to like to see this Haxorus. Haxorus comes in to start breaking swipe. I do have to respect them if they do decide to throw Ice Beams, though, so I'm trying to keep some track of the energy that they have on this Blastoise. But I also recognize that I could very well take advantage of a counter down. They just full set the Ice Beam, so that's why I'm saying you got to respect it, because a Blastoise save swap is going to expect a grass type to swap in on it, something like a Trevenant, or basically anything else that, beats waters, right? So having Ice Beam usually is that good coverage move. So with 2 counters, I can throw the breaking swipe with good timing here against the Talonflame. They are now at 3 Incinerates, which again loads them up for any move they so choose. But we're going to go for they're going to go for 2 more Incinerates, which will, again, put them at 100 energy. But that also means that I'm able to get to the breaking swipe, force the final shield, force them to throw energy, and I'm just going to no-shield this because Haxorus has more than done its job, and Brave Bird is going to take it out. And I won't even kaboom that because that really wouldn't have even done a whole lot of damage in hindsight after like 2 drops of attack. So they come in with a Swampert. I'm going to immediately come in with my Obstacoon. I have a shield. I can obstruct, and we know that this game is over. From the previous games, we've seen how this goes. Shield the first move, hit the obstruct, and let Goon just take the reins from there. Alright. I'll eat my words. This one time I decided not to shield it, and it was a freaking Earthquake. Usually they try to go for Hydro Cannon in that situation. I think I just realized, though, that I could just let Goon go and let Deoxys finish the game here. So I do decide to just let it go. But look at this. Look at this. Farm down, Goon goes down, and then Deoxys has the Psycho Boost ready to go, and that's why I'm saying, trainers, that having energy left on the Deoxys is a good thing to have, because it helps you at the end game in these situations where you can just throw it. So there's the last battle of this set. Hit Veteran after this. I didn't record the actual Veteran set, but I hit it like the next day, the next morning, so hit like another 9-in-1 run with this team, and it was freaking awesome. So thank you all so much for watching. You can hit the links for Patreon and Metafy. You know, I usually show myself at this point, but if you're interested in supporting the channel, getting coaching, and getting access to all of my meta-analysis teams, etc., before they hit YouTube, go check out the Patreon and Metafy links in the pinned comment in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.